Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, the further adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for the further adventures of Indiana Jones.
Sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Jones? Jones?
Dr. Jones, the eminent archaeologist.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Now, what shall we talk about?
Welcome once again, IndyCast listeners and further fans, to the further adventures of Indiana Jones. I'm Joe Stuber, joined as always by my buddy at the other end of the Raiders red line. He is in Austria. It's Keith Voss, kids.
Hey Joe, and hello Indy fans. Oh my goodness, it's good to be back, and there has been a lot of Indiana Jones watching lately, hasn't there?
35th anniversary of the film, so we knew this year was going to be big. I don't know if I thought it was going to be that. Man, there's a lot of Raiders stuff. Look, I've done a ton of Raiders stuff. You've done a ton of Raiders stuff. We haven't caught up in a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah, there's so much going on. I mean, first of all, I just love watching Raiders over and over again for the 35th anniversary. I lost count of how many times I've seen it and in the different formats in which I've seen it this year. But each time, it just keeps getting better, and I keep finding new things. How does that happening after 35 years?
It was amazing.
Crazy, man.
I think this was about the third or fourth time I'd seen it on the big screen. My wife Kay, she came with me. We saw it in Vienna at a film festival, part of a triple feature, and it was the first time she had seen it on the big screen. And again, it's like seeing it for the first time. Every time on the big screen, it's unbelievable.
It is, yeah.
And,
it's just a perfect
and you
movie.
feel exactly the same way watching it that you did the first time. Even though we've seen the movie probably 50, 100 times, who knows?
Yeah,
you always feel that same way. You always feel the same emotional beats. The music always hits you in such an interesting way. It's really unbelievable. I could watch it every day on the big screen and never be bored of it.
Well, it's like the summer of Indy all over again. I knew it would be big, man. I kickstarted the summer at the Ohio Theater. People know, I'm in Columbus, Ohio. At the Ohio Theater, they have the summer movie series. They started off with Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, there's no better way to start off the summer than with Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that was fun, just getting to see it again with a huge audience on the big screen. Of course, regular IndyCast listeners know I got the chance to meet up with the Raiders guys, Chris and Eric, at the Gateway Film Center. That interview's out there on past IndyCast, so you can check that out as well. Saw the documentary that they have, also Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adaptation, again with an audience. That was fun. Raiders of the Lost Ark in concert in Cleveland. I got a chance to see that. It was like with a live orchestra playing, and it's just. And Comic Book Central, I got a chance to interview the conductor, Brett Mitchell. He was amazing. He was a huge Raiders fan. So if you haven't heard that interview or has been on the IndyCast as well, be sure to check that out. He was passionate about it. So again, just seeing our favorite film in completely new ways. Even on your end, you got to see the adaptation. So you had a triple feature. So you got the movie, right? You kicked it off with the movie.
Right.
The greatest movie of all time.
One of the greatest movies of all time, if not the greatest movie of all time. So my wife Kay and I, as everybody knows, or probably doesn't know, we live in Austria. We live in Graz, which is about 2 hours south of Vienna. So there was a film festival in Vienna called the Slash Film Festival. And they did a triple feature of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then after that, Raiders the Adaptation. And then the Raiders, the story of the greatest fan film ever made documentary that aired after that. Now, Chris Strompoulos, the Indiana Jones himself, and one of the producers and stars of the Raiders documentary was supposed to be there. So we were going to meet up too, and catch up and watch the film together and stuff. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it. So there was a short video beforehand. It
is a hike. Austria is a hike. So there's always.
Chris had lived in Vienna before, and we're in contact with one another, and we were writing back and forth, and we were really looking forward to hanging out. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. So I was kind of like. sending him messages during the screening. There were about 30 people in the theater. It was a great theater at a theater called the Film Casino, which is kind of a very old style theater. They would ring almost like a school bell before the movies started. It was really, really cool.
Definitely old school.
Yeah, it was old school. You guys can definitely check out some pictures of the theater on the IndyCast Flickr page. I'll send those off to Ed. But there was one guy in the audience dressed as Indy. Now, I went up to this guy right before Raiders started. I saw him sitting there. He was the only guy dressed as Indy. I went up to him. I introduced myself. And his name is Luis. And if he's listening, Luis, hello. Yeah, great guy. We got to talking, and lifelong Indy fan. And it turns out that this guy, he's from Peru. And he has Chachapoyan heritage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't have any idols hanging around his house, does he?
No idols, and also, like Indiana Jones, he did not speak any Jovitos.
Okay.
So, but it was.
But he knew how to say.
Great time. And for some reason, a bunch of people started chasing me down the street, but I don't know. But no, we really had a great time there. The documentary is just fantastic. It's on Netflix. It actually just came on the Austrian Netflix as well. But I just received a package from Chris Strompoulos with the Raiders adaptation DVD and the Blu-ray of the Raiders documentary, and they are fantastic. Guys, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Check out this documentary on Netflix. Check it out however you can. If it's playing somewhere near you, go check it out.
Absolutely.
Go to their website.
The Raiders guys. The Raiders guys.
Yeah.
So
and order the doc off of there. It's simply fantastic. The story of what these guys pulled off, what these kids pulled off, and what they just pulled off again recently is just utterly fantastic. What did you think?
I'm going to guess that most people listening to this podcast have probably seen it or have heard about it. So I mentioned there's some spoilers. I don't want to completely ruin the ending of the documentary. But obviously they're filming the flying wing scene. They got to go back after all those years and film the flying wing scene. Boy, and you could there's something you can see coming a mile away, and you hope it doesn't come, and it does.
Yeah, but it does.
It's unbelievable. And it's very Indiana Jones like. Yeah, there's just a tense, dramatic moment at the end there, but. It's just an amazing thing, and it's just really an emotional roller coaster as you're watching the film too. So
it certainly is,
good stuff.
And the adaptation itself, the adaptation itself, just had such a great reaction from the audience. It was, I've seen it before on the small screen, but watching it on the big screen with a crowd,
you get all the reactions.
Something different, right? You get the and this is in Austria. Everybody was just laughing, and Kay, my wife, she hadn't seen it before. The dog Snickers as the monkey is just fantastic. Yeah. What these kids pulled off is just a love letter to not only Raiders of the Lost Ark, but to filmmaking in general.
Yeah, I've had a chance to see it twice now with a crowd. It's good stuff. So if you haven't seen it, I can't imagine if you're listening to this podcast you haven't seen it yet. But if you haven't, you know how to get it and go get it. So the documentary, the adaptation, Raiders of the Lost Ark in concert, Raiders on the big screen, all kinds of good stuff. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about some Indiana Jones stuff that we loved this year. I think the rest of our conversation is going to take a dramatic turn.
Unfortunately, I'm glad we got to talk about. Yeah, I'm glad we started off on a positive note.
There's look. Let's just get right into this. Let's begin a review of the Dark Horse Comics Indiana Jones 2-issue miniseries, The Golden Fleece. Yeah, we're going to spoil this as we usually do. I don't know if that's a bad thing this time. We might be a spoiler warning ahead of if you haven't read it yet.
Maybe if we could save some people from reading this, that might be a good thing.
Yeah, I guess the best thing we can say about it is it is a 2-issue miniseries, so we didn't have to slog through 4 to 6 issues of it. It's not necessarily that it's a bad read. I wouldn't say it's a bad read. I would just say it's very. It's very a lot of exposition, a lot of
exactly.
The more you learn, I keep thinking of the NBC thing. The more you learn, I don't know if I wanted to learn anything when I'm reading comic books.
This book just has some moments that just maybe really just roll my eyes.
It's a head scratching thing. Look, it's Indiana Jones and the Golden Fleece. It's a 2-issue comic book series We're going to go through the creative team here in a second. It was published in June and July of 1994. There's a few different ways you can get it. Of course, you can get the original issues. They're cheap. You know how to get them. It was later collected in the Omnibus, which I believe that's how you have been reading most of these. Omnibus
Yes,
Volume 2, the Dark Horse Omnibus, in 2008, obviously around the time of Crystal Skull. Also, to coincide with Crystal Skull, Spotlight released the 2 issues as 2 individual 24-page hardcovers for libraries. I thought this was interesting.
That is interesting.
My library here in Columbus, they have 9 copies of it. As they also have
the
they've got them. So look, it's a free way to get them. You can go to the libraries. That makes total sense to me because I feel when I'm reading this like I'm in the library. It's like I'm learning. It seems like they spent more time focusing on the backstory, the history of the Golden Fleece and Jason and everything. It seems like it seems suitable for a library. It seems suitable maybe for the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, something like that. I don't know that necessarily means good adventure.
I'd much rather be looking for the 7 and the 10 and X marks the spot in the library. But I mean, hey, if you want to read Golden Fleece, go right ahead.
It's there in the library. Let's run down the creative team and then we'll get right into the story itself.
You got it. We have Dark Horse Comics, Indiana Jones, and the Golden Fleece. Script by Pat McGreal and Dave Rawson. Pencils by Ken Hooper. The inks are by Stan Wach, Eric Schanauer. The colors by John A. Wilcox. Letters by Clem Robbins. With a special thanks to Brandon McKinney.
Yeah, we got our covers by Russell Wachs. We talked about Russell earlier. Arms of Gold. He did the covers for the also Sargasso Pirates that's coming up, Star Wars, X-Files, Star Trek. So we talked about him on a previous episode of Further Adventures. Pat McGreal, I thought this was interesting too. People are familiar with Flashpoint, the Flash. Not that Flashpoint. There was a DC Comics Elseworld story back in 1999, predating the Flashpoint everybody knows by over a decade. So it's the Flash going back in time, and I believe it involves Kennedy. So he kind of did a Flashpoint story before there was Flashpoint. So that's the pretty cool aspect of Pat McGreal. Look, coming into this issue, I know if you flip to the back of the issues, it really details a lot of the history of the MacGuffin, this time period, what we're talking about. It seems like I said, I think there's more put into that and the storytelling of what this is than the actual adventure.
Exactly.
I don't need to learn. I think that's the problem I have with Young Indiana Jones Chronicles a lot of times is that it just is like, hey, let's learn something. It's always interesting to have the MacGuffin or the quest or whatever have some sort of sense in reality or that some things happen. But that's not the end all be all for me. To me, that's like maybe the least interesting part of an Indiana Jones adventure. I just like the adventure. I like the character.
We've said it before, and we'll probably say it again. It's not about the actual MacGuffin.
Yeah,
it's the adventure of getting there. What he learns, getting there. What he discovers about himself or the people around him, getting there. I mean, I thought the Golden Fleece was an interesting MacGuffin. I liked that they touched upon Greek mythology a little bit. I thought all that was well and good, but I think it was touched upon a little too much, where it detracted from the other aspects of the storyline. And it didn't bother me per se. I mean, I kind of found myself getting through both of these issues relatively quickly, and I kind of glossed over the artwork because I felt like I was reading too much. Does that make sense? Like, there's
a lot of exposition.
Normally when it's a little too much exposition, so I kind of wasn't really appreciating the artwork, which is good. I thought the artwork is actually pretty decent.
That to me,
for the most part.
Ken Hooper's pencils. Yeah, I thought that's the strongest point of these two books.
I agree.
Really good
I
Harrison
totally
Ford.
Likenesses are okay. We get something a little different. I also feel like the artwork kind of changes slightly throughout the book. Maybe they were rushed. Maybe I don't know, but there were just certain moments where you look at some of these pictures and you're like, oh man, it just they could have spent a little bit more time on that instead of giving you a couple of pages of expositional dialogue.
Yeah, it's hit or miss, but I think it's mostly hit for the artwork.
Covers are great.
The covers are great. I think as we get on into some of the upcoming Dark Horse series, I think the covers get better because we've hit this part of a lot of these covers where they're obviously using, and we've talked about this before, where they're obviously using stills from, publicity stills from the movies or screen
obviously,
captures.
Temple of Doom, Temple of Doom stills.
Yeah,
here
so we're coming in, so those are obvious, and then it's just the first one is minimal. It kind of takes a minimalist approach. I mean, the planes are a little small. I don't know. It just seems like some images kind of plastered together. Our female character. How do you pronounce her first? Is it Omphale? Kiapos.
Yeah.
Her appearance changes from issue 1 to issue 2 on the cover a little bit. I'm just okay with it. Yeah, but I mean, even the face, like it looks like a different model that was used. Unless it's just a different angle or something. I don't know. I mean, they're okay. I mean, look, you got an Indiana Jones and a dragon on the cover of issue number 2, which is kind of cool. But again, I'm just kind of tired of these images that we've already seen in Indiana Jones films. And I think as we move forward,
I want a little bit more originality as well.
Yeah, you're going to see that more in Sargasso Pirates. You're going to see that more in Spear of Destiny. So I think as they got away from these types of covers, it became a little bit more exciting artwork. I mean, they're fine. It's just it seems to me some images kind of pasted on or so, and you can tell he's kind of in the first one. It's that still where he's kind of holding something, but it almost looks like a fist without something in it, and it just I don't know throws it off for me a little bit. But
it just exactly just doesn't match up quite so well. And I think I've mentioned to you before that as a kid I was buying these issues strictly because of the covers. I mean, like I would get into the story somewhat, but I always felt that the Further Adventures, the Marvel run, was way better than almost anything that Dark Horse did. I wasn't that into it, but I thought the covers were great. I mean, you were getting new Indiana Jones artwork, good Indiana Jones artwork, almost Drew Struzan-like in many aspects.
Yeah, and some of them I just wouldn't apply that to these particular covers. They're okay. Right. They're just they're not as memorable to me as some of the other ones. Our story takes place in 1941. So look, we're going to get Indiana Jones. We're going to get Nazis. We're in Greece, and there's like this whole backstory about that this was an actual event that was taking place. Indy and his crew are pulled off of an archaeological dig. That they have to sort of get out before the Nazis come in. And then, of course, Indiana Jones goes back. He makes sure everybody gets off to safety, and then he goes back to the dig. And that's sort of where the story takes off. Again, I don't necessarily need the whole, like, this took place at an actual event, and we're going to put Indiana Jones in. I don't necessarily need that. I think there was a move to do that in some of these comic books.
Well, it was very much taken right out of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles as well.
It was very reminiscent of that, and
which I found,
which is at the same time. It's in the same time period, early '90s. So yeah.
But I found one thing I did find interesting about this was the fact that it was taken from the memoirs of Indiana Jones, and it's kind of written so that you're reading out of like some type of journal that Indy wrote, and basically that's where you're getting the information for this story from. I kind of liked that a little bit, like you're reading in his words what transpires in this adventure. I thought that was kind of a cool idea. It seems like they could have used that even a little bit more, but I don't know. I thought that was a good way of kind of getting the story across.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting storytelling device. I just don't think that there's that much of an interesting story to tell.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. Like as you go through there's really no villain as you go, and that's a huge part of it. I mean, you think about Raiders, you've got Belloc. You think about Temple of Doom, you've got Mola Ram. I think that was one of the things that was missing in Last Crusade was that you didn't really have a strong villain in that piece. It was more the adventure of him and his dad kind of going along, which is cool. I don't know that he had a strong villain.
There wasn't one main villain. There was a bunch of lesser villains.
Yeah.
In Crusade,
and give Crystal Skull credit. I mean, you had some strong villains in that piece. I mean, you with Dovchenko, it's just like
absolutely
not as strong as Belloc, obviously. When you're going back and Spalko, but I mean, I think that's inherently some of the problems with some of the Indiana Jones stories. You really need to have a strong villain. I mean, think of some of these pieces. Star Wars, Darth Vader. There's a definite villain there. Star Trek, Wrath of Khan. I mean, so think of some of the best stories as you have the heroes going up against a strong villain. And I think that's what a lot of these comic books are missing, is that you don't have that sort of adversary for Indiana Jones. But you
some
also
of
the Marvel books we did, we talked about some of, they were trying to bring some villains in for him to fight as you go through. And I think when you don't have it, this one didn't even have a villain. I mean, to be honest, there's no villain in the piece.
It does sort of have a villain later on.
Who did you think was the villain?
The old double cross, though. I mean, but is he a villain, or is he just greedy and just want the artifact for himself and decides? Exactly. So, but I mean,
but that all takes place within a couple of pages, though. I mean, that's all like within a few pages. That to me is not. I haven't built up any interest in that character.
I totally get you. I mean, but you're also coming dangerously close to having like a villain of the week type situation where like, okay, there's another villain and Indiana Jones defeats him. I would have almost liked there to be maybe another like consistent villain throughout the Dark Horse series that, almost like a Belloc where there's an established history, like at the very beginning of Raiders, like, so we meet once again.
Yeah.
And again, you see there's nothing you could possess. I mean, there's a history established right there. Why couldn't there be something like that here and give like, Indiana Jones a good nemesis throughout the series?
I think because you have different creative teams on these books, and it just there's no consistency as you kind of go through it. So I think we even talked about this. It was either the last series or the one before it where, you could tell the writers weren't even reading what had come before them. Because they kind of, there's some different dates, there's some things out of whack. So, I mean, that's a problem when you don't have consistency like that. But I think you do need some sort of strong villain, and there's definitely, to me, no villain in this piece. And you've got these characters popping up. Is it Mehmed Sarper? Kind of like a Salah wannabe. So, hey, look here, this guy kind of looks like Salah, but he's not really Salah. I mean, there's a strong characterization right there. John Rhys Davies, there's a history there. He propels the story along. There's no real, good sidekick for Indy in this one. There's no villain. And to me, there's really no love interest in this piece, too. And that's the drawback you get with this because they're kind of handcuffed as to what they can do. They obviously can't use Marion. They didn't know if they were going to be doing more Indiana Jones movies at the time. Omphale, or Omphale, however you pronounce it, I'm not sure, but it's just strange. Like, she's pregnant in this, so I don't know who the father is. And there's really only one reason as you're going through the story. There's really only one reason to introduce, a female character for Indiana Jones who's pregnant.
Yeah,
because you're building to the end. They start at the end of the story and work their way backwards. So you have to have this baby that's involved. But look, paging Dr. Jones, OBGYN. It's just so strange to have, Indy wouldn't be taking a pregnant woman along this adventure. They even reference that. Right. And, he's like, oh, well, you're stubborn as a mule and takes her along. But no, she wouldn't be.
The jokes.
She's ready to give birth because she gives birth at the end of the issue.
Right. And the jokes kind of fall flat. There's kind of a running joke in this book of her saying how much she hates the name Indy.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, okay,
it's not even a good joke. Yeah,
it's just not a good joke. It's not funny. But there is a moment that really kind of surprised me.
There are a few. There are a few moments.
Yeah. but before we get to that, let's just kind of run the story down a little bit because
we haven't run the story down enough. Yeah, walk us through it. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like at this dig, and he's trying, he wants to get this treasure before the Nazis.
There's a Nazi raid. Jones puts his crew on a landing craft while he goes back to save this treasure of Atreus from the Nazis, and he recovers this knife. Outside the tomb, Indy finds himself surrounded by Nazi soldiers, and he escapes on a bicycle. Not a bad escape for a comic book, kind of different. I thought it was okay.
There's a little humor there.
Exactly.
He kind of makes quick work of the Nazis, though, like right off the bat. Like
everything seems too easy.
Yeah.
In a way, really I don't know. And there's really not a lot of tension or that much excitement or I don't know. I just you get this funny moment where the Nazis are looking for Indy, and then this pregnant woman, Umfale or Umfal, we don't even know how to pronounce her name. Sorry,
I don't care. Yeah, it's fine. It's forgettable.
This woman hides Indy in I guess a vase or a jar full of olive oil. Which
it's this big. What do you call it? Big barrel of olive oil.
A barrel of olive oil, which was kind of a decently funny moment. But yeah, there's this pregnant woman. So basically, she helps him. Jones eludes them.
I guess, but he's going to be covered with olive oil the whole rest of the story. I mean, there's no point where he goes into the
Have you ever gotten olive oil on your hands or on a piece of your clothing?
It doesn't come off.
It doesn't come off very easily.
No, he's coated in olive oil. It's not like
why didn't they use that later on in why didn't maybe some Nazi grabbed him or something like that and then he was able to slip out or do something with it? Why don't you? That's a good callback. He's covered in olive oil.
Yes, but at some point when he's going on the adventure, he has to get cleaned up. But you don't see him get cleaned up anywhere. You don't see him. Take a dive in the drink or something that would have washed off. It just, you got to remember.
Well, get it?
These things.
He's in Greece, so now he's greasy. Get it?
Yeah.
Get it?
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
That was a better joke than anything that they had in that comic book show.
Yes, it was true. I'll give you that.
Anyway,
so
Indy eludes those pursuers. They go to the docks to escape. There's a Turkish man wearing a cape.
What's his name?
Indy.
What's his name?
I don't know.
I don't know. Don't care. Is he a villain? Is he not? He's part of this cult of Hecate, and which was, by the way, was Catwoman's cat, Lee Merriweather's cat in Batman.
Yeah,
the 1966 movie. I thought that was cool.
Right.
That Hecate I enjoyed. This Hecate, not so much.
Yeah, there's this cult that's after that knife that Indy found. A lot of these members show up. They try to steal that knife. Indy and this woman steal a Nazi plane. She flies it. Her father was a pilot. Of course she can fly it. I mean.
She doesn't fly
story
well.
calls for.
I guess, but she's almost ready to
Indy
give
can't
birth
fly it, right? Or can he? I don't know.
He can take off, yes.
Fly,
land,
yes.
fly, yes. Land, no.
No, exactly. Before we get to the end of the issue 1, we find that they're losing altitude and they're heading towards a cliff.
Yeah, it's a little cliffhanger.
How will it pick up? How will it end?
I don't care.
Yeah,
they survive.
Really,
they survive. It's issue 2, and then they get the knife, and then it's tied in with this fleece, which it was made for evil uses, and it has to be converted, I guess, back to good uses again. And they're trying, and so I don't even remember what happened to the first archaeological dig he was on. That we kind of moved past that. Now they're off on this quest for the Golden Fleece. I don't know why he needs to get it. This cult is looking for it. We run into some other characters that we really don't care about. Again, they're not really villains of the piece. They're just there to introduce some more expositional dialogue.
And we get a couple of references to the Ark and the Holy Grail. So, I mean, it's interesting how this guy knows all about those adventures. I guess Indy's adventures are quite famous at this point. Either that or he's been going around telling everybody that he found the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail, which I don't know if that would be happening.
No, and it wouldn't have that.
Makes no sense.
It's just like, hey, readers of Indiana Jones, we're going to drop these references in. And it's like, okay, but that wouldn't be common knowledge.
Wouldn't be common knowledge.
No,
exactly. Wouldn't be common knowledge. I mean, those moments happened, and nobody else besides really a very, very few people know that these things exist.
Yeah.
So this guy that they meet up with, who can, he's reading these symbols, and this guy gives more expositional dialogue. This Don Von.
Whatever.
Don
Von.
Yeah. I guess they're friends. He starts telling Indy about the Golden Fleece and the history of the Golden Fleece, which is actually, kind of interesting stuff. But yeah, it turns out that this guy wants it for himself. And
spoiler alert, he turns on him.
Spoiler alert, he turns on him. But there's a moment in this book that I was really kind of surprised by.
Yeah.
He turns on Indy and this woman and basically gives her a glass of champagne.
Well, he's spiking their drink just to knock him out so he can run off with what he wants
She's
to.
Pregnant!
She's pregnant. I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking he's pouring 3 drinks here. And I thought at some point she'd go, oh, no, none for me, thanks. But she has to have it to get knocked out. So she takes it. Yeah, I mean, okay, I guess 1941 things were different. I don't know. Whatever.
I mean, I don't know.
It was such a strange moment. And then within another few pages, they're like, they're both off on this journey. You talked about was it the last series or the series before about how didn't a donkey like go into the drink or something, and we thought it.
Yeah, it happens again. It happens.
Yeah,
again
it was like another donkey like goes off the cliff. This one didn't make it. Like on their journey, like they're going across one of these rope bridges, like from Temple of Doom, and like the donkey falls down to its death.
Yeah, but it's also kind of confusing as to what actually happens there. Like I find that there's a few moments that they could have been a little bit more detailed with. But
yes, that was just another strange moment in a book full of strange moments.
That's true. I did like the idea of the fleece being hidden in plain sight. It being used as I guess they use it as a canvas for a painting.
Yeah.
And the guide, I liked that idea. It was just something different.
It was an interesting part of a mystery or something, I guess.
Interesting part of the mystery. Guy didn't know what he had. It turned out, he mounted the Golden Fleece and used it as a canvas for a painting that he made or that somebody made. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Okay. not so much. But they get this thing, and then they've got to take it to, where are they taking it? They have to go up to this snowy valley of Hecate, and Indy fights some of the cult members. And so, they're trying to get this fleece back so that it could be, go back to its original purpose for good instead of evil. Again, if you want to read the entire history of this and the Greek mythology and Jason and the Argonauts, which is probably a better movie, even though I've never seen it. You can
Great
go.
Movie.
Is it a good movie? Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah,
Look, maybe I'll watch that. I've seen the clips, but I haven't seen the full movie,
Classic.
so maybe I'll go watch that. But Indy has to take these guys on, and then all of a sudden this big snowstorm comes up, and then. Omphale, she starts to give birth. Well, that was my whole point of this whole thing. She's 9 months pregnant. Going into this thing, we don't know anything about her or the baby or the dad we don't know anything about it. It's just a pregnant woman in the life of Indiana Jones. Why? Why is she going on this adventure? Because she has to give birth to this baby, which now with Dr. Jones can deliver and does, and then turns around and offers it to Hecate.
Well, I mean,
I'm out. I'm out. I don't get any of that. That's ridiculous. What if Hecate took it?
It's just not interesting.
But it's insane. It does. What was the end result of that? He didn't know what was going to happen. How did he know that was going to work? And what if Hecate or this big dragon that pops out of the thing? What if it took the baby?
Yeah.
Seriously, he's offering this baby, and all of a sudden it was like, "Oh, I'm happy you gave me this baby. Here, the fleece is now converted, and I'll take this golden ram."
I don't know. It just didn't
I don't know what
very...
happened, and I didn't care.
It didn't seem very in character. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it just didn't seem very in character for Indy, unless he somehow, somewhere along the adventure, he knew that that's what he had to do.
No, you're being an apologist for this.
Well, yeah,
no,
that's
you
true.
started with
that's
that
true.
imagery of here's this thing that we have to offer a child to. Let's work our way backwards from that. Oh, let's introduce a pregnant woman as the female of this story. They started with a moment and worked backwards, and I hate that because it's just you're just building up to that moment, and nothing makes sense along the way.
I mean, in Indy's memoirs,
totally
right before the dragon comes out, they have these 4 panels where it basically says, Hecate, enraged with centuries of avarice and abuse, conspired with elemental natures. So the elements have something to do with this. And you see a picture of the woman giving birth, and it says, delivered of fire by its agent air. And then you have a picture of her, channeled from earth through frozen water, which is basically they're in this frozen, snowy wasteland. And then it shows Indy basically delivering the baby. He says, okay, kid, we're almost there. The baby's head's coming. Let's nature do the rest. And then Indy's memoirs say, give birth to twin powers. The elder fraternal was the goddess's servant released. And then he just takes the baby and offers it to this gigantic dragon snake. And it's just kind of it makes no sense, even though Indy says it was the only thing that made sense somehow.
No. Indiana Jones takes a pregnant woman along on a 9-month pregnant woman along on an adventure. She has alcohol during the adventure, and then he ends up delivering her baby and handing it to some god thing and who rejects
While all
it.
these,
thank goodness,
while all
and she
these
gets to
little
keep the
Jawas
baby.
are running around. Didn't the cult members look like hooded Jawas?
Yeah,
from Star Wars.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know. It was the first
Again,
thing I
no
thought
villain, no romantic interest here. They kiss at one point. I don't even know why, because he just met her. It doesn't make any sense. It's Indiana Jones on a bicycle. They're forgetting about the fact that Indiana Jones is all about adventure. I don't want to read all this stuff. The more I read through the book, then you get to the end, it's like, hey, if you want to learn more about the story, really? No, I just want to see Indiana Jones throwing down with some bad guys. It's like, you know what? Come up
it
with
got
an
a
original
little
adventure.
too fantasy for me. Like, you know, you see this dragon, and then you know, I don't know, and then this like kind of god comes down, and she pulls the dragon up, and then like the fleece turns into a golden goat, and you see the golden goat fly up into the heavens, and Indy's just sitting there holding this woman who's holding her baby, and it just was a little too fantasy for me.
Yeah, Indiana Jones in the 90s, a mixed bag all the time, because you know it's always
really
have this big crazy thing at the end. It's like, no, just care about the characters going in. Give us some good characters going in. Have them doing things that we enjoy, reading or watching or looking at in comic books, and then go from there. But it was like these. Let's take this thing and work backwards from that. And I think that's a lot of the problem with the movies too, is that Lucas always was like, okay, I got to get the MacGuffin. I got to crack the story. I got to get the MacGuffin, and then work backwards from that. No, you don't. And that's, especially with the Crystal Skull, it's like, we have this, so let's work backwards from that. No, just get the characters, have them doing interesting things. The MacGuffin, it's there, but we just want to see him going off on a very cool adventure, doing very cool things. That when you start working backwards from the MacGuffin, now with Raiders, that's a whole different thing altogether. You got the Ark of the Covenant. That is just a great piece. You're never going to top that.
No.
But the movie isn't about the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
It almost becomes, oh, that's right, they are going after something at some point, because you've got these cool characters doing cool things.
That is the point of Raiders. And that episode of Big Bang Theory that kind of says, well, what's the point of Indiana Jones being in the movie? Like, sorry, I think that theory is just terrible. The whole point of Raiders of the Lost Ark is to see Indiana Jones go on an adventure.
Well, and that theory falls apart anyway, because if Indiana Jones isn't in the adventure, Marion gets killed by the Nazis in the bar.
And I mean, if Indiana Jones isn't in the adventure, then we don't have Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is the greatest adventure movie ever made. So Big Bang Theory, sorry, suck it.
And we don't have Raiders of the Lost Ark the adaptation, and we don't have the documentary, and we don't have Raiders of the Lost Ark in concert, and we don't have a very cool summer that we had in 2016.
Right. And then we also don't have the IndyCast. So
that's
there
right.
You go.
So unfortunately, we do have the Golden Fleece sprung out of that. Look, if you want to learn about the Golden Fleece and find out all about the history of it, I recommend this series. If you want a cool Indiana Jones adventure, I can't recommend it.
Yeah, me too. It's just, I mean, if you're a completist, which probably most of us are as indie fans, then you're probably going to want it for your collection. I mean, there's some decent stuff in there, but for the most part, this one falls flat.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
Keith, it was, I enjoyed getting together with you again, talking about some Indiana Jones stuff. I think we're going to get some better adventures, comic book adventures, in the segments ahead.
I have a feeling it's coming for sure.
And we want to hear from the listeners, too. Make sure you drop us a line. Check us out on Facebook. But we want to know what you think of these adventures. Look, if we're wrong about Golden Fleece, tell us about it. What are the things you like about it? Or if you just want to commiserate with us and rant and share your feelings about this series as well. Keith, where can they write?
They can write us at thefurtheradventures@gmail.com, and we would also love to hear if any of you guys have watched the Raiders documentary. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm sure Chris and Eric would also like to hear some positive thoughts and reviews on that movie. We'd love to hear from you guys. Drop us a line.
Check us out on Facebook as well. We're out there. Keith, always a pleasure. Next time, adventure, intrigue, more Indy versus Nazis, rising from the ashes of an abandoned video game. It's the lost sequel to Fate of Atlantis, Indiana Jones and the Iron Phoenix. That is next time on The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.